You're watching All 24 News World News Program. To the headlines. Drones and missiles strike strategic targets in Iran. Now Moscow is warning of dire consequences as the war widens. Washington gives Iran 48 hours to open the Strait of Hormuz. Iran threatens to close it completely, while NATO moves to implement Trump's plan to reopen the waterway. Also coming up, Algeria and Niger wrap up expert-level talks in Niamey. Niger is praising their strategic partnership on energy development. And later on, the Brussels bombing anniversary brings new scrutiny on the Muslims' role in European terror attacks. Activists are protesting outside the European Parliament over repression in the kingdom. Welcome back. First up in our news tonight, more than 200 children have been killed in U.S. Zionist attacks on Iran, according to the country's health minister. Mohammad Reza Zafar Gandhi tells Iranian news agencies now that 210 children are dead and 300 healthcare centers damaged since the start of the aggression. Iranian media reported U.S. Zionist airstrikes targeting the Isfahan nuclear complex, with explosions heard Sunday in Isfahan and Avaz. U.S. Central Command says it struck a ballistic missile facility east of Tehran, putting it out of service. Iranian forces say air defenses hit an F-15 fighter jet near Hormuz Island off the southern coast. Iran's Revolutionary Guard announces new missiles wave of Operation True Promise 4 targeting U.S. bases in the region and military sites in occupied Palestine. In statement Sunday, it claims the balance of power is shifting in Iran's favor, citing the collapse of U.S. and Zionist air defense systems in West Asia and disruptions to American weapons support networks. Saturday evening saw one of the deadliest attacks by Iran on occupied Palestinian territories, leaving over 300 Zionist settlers dead or wounded. Missiles struck Dimona and Arad in southern Palestine, causing widespread destruction, fires, and dozens of casualties. Hezbollah also shelled settlements in the occupied Galilee, killing 2 and injuring several. Iranian military says advanced Arash 2 drones with a 2,000-kilometer range were used in an attack on Lod, the so-called Ben Gurion airport. Spokesman Mohammad Akraminiya says the drones are being produced rapidly and can be launched in large numbers at any time. A new and unprecedented escalation is reshaping the dynamics of the war in the Middle East as Iran launches one of its most intense and coordinated attacks yet on occupied territories. Zafar Jen reports now.
In a sharp and unprecedented escalation in the Middle East, Iran carries out one of its most intense and coordinated attacks. In what observers described as the most powerful and precise strikes of the war so far, Iran unleashed a massive barrage of ballistic missiles and suicide drones, targeting multiple locations across occupied Palestinian territories. The operation, carried out as part of what Tehran calls a calibrated response to American and Zionist aggression, overwhelmed air defense systems, including the Iron Dome, exposing structural limitations in interception capabilities. For the first time, Zionist authorities acknowledged casualties, with several dozens injured among settlers. Simultaneously, Hezbollah intensified its operations on the northern front. Sustained rocket fire from southern Lebanon targeted border settlements, creating what analysts described as a pressure front aimed at exhausting occupation military resources and spreading panic across multiple areas. Beyond the immediate destruction, this escalation signals a deeper strategic shift, despite repeated American claims that Iran's missile stockpiles were depleted. The scale of the attack suggests otherwise. Iran is now showcasing advanced weaponry and signaling its readiness for a prolonged conflict. For his part, US President Donald Trump has sent an ultimatum to Tehran, warning of targeting Iranian energy facilities.
If Iran does not fully open the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours, the United States will strike and destroy its energy facilities, starting with the largest ones.
In response, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said Iran will completely shut the Strait of Trump if proceeds with his threats.
We did not start the war and we will not start it now. But if the enemy harms our power plants, we will do everything to defend the country and the interests of our people.
These warnings add a new layer of danger to an already volatile situation, raising fears of a wider regional confrontation that could extend beyond current front lines and redefine the balance of power in the Middle East.
Russian presidential spokesman Dmitry Peskov warns the Middle East conflict is escalating amid rising regional tensions. In Sunday remarks, he says assassinating Iranian leaders would have serious consequences and would not go unpunished.
I don't think any rational person can predict how the situation in the Middle East will develop in the future. Unfortunately, we see that the war in the Middle East is tending to expand. The assassination of Iranian leaders will not pass without consequences, and it will have serious repercussions. We all know that the goal of this campaign at the beginning was to change the regime in Tehran, but it has now become clear that any such action only leads to greater unity among the Iranian people around their leadership.
Iran's International Maritime Organization representative Ali Mousavi says the Strait of Hormuz remains open to international shipping except for vessels linked to hostile parties. He adds that non-hostile ships must coordinate with Iranian authorities on security measures and stresses that adversary military activity is driving Iran's actions. Mousavi also affirms Iran is ready to work with the IMO to protect mariners in the Persian Gulf. Iran warns it will take immediate punitive measures if the U.S. attacks its power plants. The Khatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters says the response would target multiple strategic sites, starting with closing the Strait of Hormuz, striking the Zionist entity's energy and IT infrastructure, and destroying regional companies with American investment. Power plants in countries hosting U.S. bases are also deemed legitimate targets. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says the alliance is working with Washington to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and secure safe passage. In a Sunday interview, he confirms 22 countries, including NATO members and others, are acting on U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to keep the strait free, from Iranian threats.
Since Thursday, a group of 22 countries, most of them from NATO, but also Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, the UAE and Bahrain, most of the other countries from NATO, coming together to implement his vision of making sure that the Strait of Hormuz is free, is opening up as soon as that is possible.
Iran's Khatam al-Anbiya military headquarters warns it will take or target U.S. and Zionist energy, IT, and desalination infrastructure if Iranian facilities are attacked. The statement Sunday comes after Trump threatened strikes on Iranian power plants if the Strait of Hormuz is not reopened within 48 hours. Still with the Middle East developments, Qatar's Interior Ministry reports a helicopter crash in territorial waters has killed 7 people, with 1 crew member still missing. The ministry says a technical malfunction caused the crash during a routine mission. The Gulf Cooperation Council says its members reserve the right to respond to Iranian aggression and take all measures to protect their security. Secretary General Jassim al-Boudiwi condemns Iran's attacks on infrastructure and oil facilities, calling them a clear violation of international law and a threat to regional security and global energy supplies. The Lebanese Ministry of Health reports 4 martyrs or 4 dead in Zionist airstrikes on southern Lebanon's Nabatea Governorate. Airstrikes hit As-Sawana, killing 2, and As-Sultaniya, leaving at least 2 dead and several injured. Since the start of the aggression, 40 healthcare workers have been killed, 119 injured, and 128 medical facilities damaged, with many now out of service. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun condemns the Zionist occupation's attacks on southern Lebanon, including the destruction of the Qasimiya Bridge of the Litani River. He calls the strikes a dangerous escalation, a clear violation of Lebanese sovereignty, and a possible prelude to a ground invasion, which Lebanon has repeatedly warned against.
Targeting the Litani River Bridge, a vital artery for civilian movement, constitutes an attempt to sever geographical connectivity between the area south of the Litani and the rest of the Lebanese territory. It also obstructs the delivery of humanitarian aid and falls within suspicious plans aimed at establishing a buffer zone, consolidating hence the reality of occupation and facilitating Israeli incursions into Lebanese land.
Moving on to Gaza now, 5 Palestinians were killed and others wounded in 2 separate Zionist attacks in the Strip. In central Gaza, a Zionist reconnaissance aircraft hit a police vehicle at the Abu Sarar intersection in Nusayrat refugee camp. 4 killed and 8 wounded. In Gaza City, a separate bombing targeted civilians near the old courthouse by the Sheikh Ridwan Bridge, killing 1 person and wounding another. In Gaza, displaced families marked Eid by teaching their children to make ornaments from recycled rubble. A small moment of joy and land shattered by the genocide. The ceasefire hasn't stopped the suffering. Salman Siva has the story.
In Gaza, amid the ruins and shattered buildings, children had gathered to celebrate Eid. They collected whatever they could find: worn papers, chip wrappers, pieces of discarded plastic. Here, nothing is wasted, everything is transformed.
فكرة التزيين أنا بشكل عام بحب أعمل إعادة تدوير لكل حاجة. أكياس الشيبسي بعمل.
I generally love the idea of recycling, and I recycle everything, like snacks bags, papers, and aid boxes. The idea came to me because Eid is approaching, and with limited resources, I can't afford to buy anything. So I wanted to create something from the available materials. With Eid approaching, we must bring joy to the children. That's why I recycle the things around me, to bring happiness to the little ones and to decorate they tend to live in. Of course, I'm not generally happy. In their hands, this waste takes on a new life. They cut up the colorful packaging and piece it together to create garlands. Almost festive, since the beginning of the genocide, the taste of Eid has changed for Palestinians.
Before the war, we used to buy things ready-made, but after the war, the crossings were closed, so we had to invent something ourselves to bring joy to the children. Because today, the children have nothing to play with, no dolls, no toys, nothing. Everything is gone.
The crossings are closed, so we started collecting soda cans and papers and made lanterns out of them. Every time the crossings are closed, the pressure on us increases, and as soon as the merchants hear that the crossings are closed, the prices go up. So we started making lanterns ourselves to bring some joy and make the tent look nicer. As you can see now, all the materials we use to make lanterns are just scraps which we collect from the ground.
In Gaza, with almost nothing, a great deal of joy is created, and in that fragile joy there is resilience, a quiet refusal to let hope disappear. Even among the rubble, childhood finds a way to endure, to imagine, and to celebrate.
And as you followed in our headlines tonight, the Algeria-Nigerian Joint Committee of Experts began meetings Sunday to prepare for a high-level joint committee. Representatives from multiple ministries discussed bilateral cooperation, monitoring key projects, and explored collaboration in energy, infrastructure, communication, security, and banking. 3 major projects lead the agenda: the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline, the Trans-Saharan highway, and a fiber optic network. Balam Shabahi, Director of African Relations at Algeria's Foreign Ministry, says Algeria is pushing to expedite these projects, starting with the gas pipeline from Nigeria through Niger to Algeria.
الهدف من الاجتماع هو تسريع وتيرة الإنجاز.
The purpose of the meeting is to accelerate the pace of implementation of at least 3 strategic projects, commonly referred to as structural projects: the Trans-Saharan highway, the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline, and the fiber optic connection. These 3 projects are among the major initiatives within the framework of the African Union, specifically under the NEPAD program. They are structural projects that the committee aims to speed up, at least at the level of Algeria and Niger. Although other countries are also concerned by these projects, the committee is primarily focused on the Nigerian aspect as a priority. One of the main objectives of the Joint High Commission is to implement the important commitments agreed upon during the recent visit of the President of the Republic of Niger to Algeria.
For his part, the Deputy Director of Niger's National Oil Company, Nwab Kader, says the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline to Algeria has never been halted. Speaking Sunday at the Algerian-Nigerian Joint Committee meeting, he confirmed the project's implementation is imminent and highlighted its major economic and social benefits for both countries.
Regarding the pipeline, there is already a major infrastructure project in place, the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline, which runs through Niger to Algeria. In fact, work on this project has never truly stopped, and it is expected to become operational very soon. It is a development project for the countries involved, with economic and social implications and benefits for each party.
Algerian Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense and Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, General Said Chingriha, calls for professionalism and proactive engagement amid major global shifts affecting developing countries. Speaking at the Eid al-Fitr greeting ceremony Sunday, he warned of rising conflicts, weakening multilateral organizations, and growing disregard for international law.
يأتي احتفالنا بهاتين المناسبتين.
Our celebration of these 2 occasions comes amid a context of rapid and increasingly dangerous geopolitical shifts shaping the current international landscape. The situation is marked by a renewed reliance on war and military interventions, a decline in the role of multilateral organizations, and growing disregard for international law, all of which undermine state sovereignty and national choices. In this context, it is essential to raise awareness with highest level of professionalism and foresight, particularly regarding the profound geopolitical transformations the world is witnessing and their repercussions on countries of Global South.
Ayman Harshi, 30-year-old of Algerian descent and Flemish parliament member, has been elected leader of the Belgian Green Party. He won an absolute majority in the first round with 51.1%, defeating Bogdan van den Berg and Valérie Tanguy, and was confirmed as party leader.
Goedenavond, eerst en vooral, ik ben Ayman.
I've been a member of this party for 10 years and I'm very proud of my membership. We are here today to celebrate with everyone who helped in the election campaign. What we feel today through the elections is the energy within the party, the desire to change the times and to fight socially irresponsible policies. This is the energy I will hold on to in the coming weeks to ensure the party regains its full strength 100%. We are very proud of our values and I'm very proud of the Green Party. So no, we will not hide our identity or who we are.
10 years after the Brussels bombings, Europe's still asking hard questions, not just about security, but about the attackers themselves. The Maritime regimes keeps coming up. Several of those involved had Moroccan roots, and there are claims the royal palace was connected to terrorist networks across the continent. More details with Yassine Erikti this time.
10 years after the 2016 Brussels bombings, the anniversary has resurfaced, reviving painful memories and renewed questions about extremism in Europe and the backgrounds of some perpetrators involved in the attacks. The commemoration has reopened lasting wounds as attention returns to those responsible and the broader networks that may have influenced them. In this context, some commentaries and reports have revisited allegations pointing to possible foreign links to extremist networks in Europe, including claims that reference Morocco.
If
we look into the alleged direct connections involving the Moroccan consulate and the Moroccan council, sometimes referred to as being linked to the Moroccan consulate in Dambouch, due to claims that he appointed his son, there it is claimed that explosives were sent through these channels and ultimately reached those responsible for the March 2022-2016 attacks. These assertions, however, remain highly controversial and are not supported by publicly confirmed evidence.
These claims, cited in certain analyses and attributed to unnamed intelligence sources, have fueled debate but remain contested and unproven in publicly available evidence. The anniversary of March 22nd in Brussels has also reignited discussion around accusations that elements within the Moroccan government sought to minimize or deflect such allegations over the years. Critics argue that these claims suggest a broader pattern of influence, while officials in Morocco have consistently denied any involvement in or support for extremist activities.
بعد ذلك بمدة تم إرسال خبر بأن ابن القنصل المغربي توفي بعمل.
Sometime after the operation, reports emerged claiming that the son of the Moroccan consul had also died in a terrorist attack in Syria. The consul later stated that in 2024 he had been informed of news reports indicating that the death occurred under mysterious circumstances. These claims have been interpreted by some as suggesting that Moroccan intelligence may have sought to erase potentially incriminating evidence related to the incident, though such allegations remain unverified and highly contested.
The Brussels attacks are widely seen as part of a broader wave of extremist violence that affected several European cities during that period. Experts emphasize that these events highlight the complexity of radicalization, cross-border networks, and intelligence cooperation. As Europe reflects on the attacks, the focus remains on understanding root causes, strengthening international collaboration, and addressing competing narratives, including those involving Morocco, that continue to shape debate.
The Moroccan Forum for Truth and Justice will hold a protest Thursday in front of the European Parliament in Brussels, condemning repression and human rights abuses in Morocco. The event calls for the release of political prisoners and accountability for the authorities, followed by a human rights conference reviewing reports and first-hand accounts of the Maritime regime's violations. Moving on to another different news story. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva accuses the United States of a new form of colonialism in Latin America, citing U.S. actions in Venezuela and the embargo on Cuba. Speaking at the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States Summit in Bogota Saturday, he criticized foreign interference, saying democracy does not mean controlling other countries, and reaffirmed Brazil's opposition to all foreign intervention.
It is impossible for someone to think they own other countries. Look what they are doing to Cuba right now. Look what they did to Venezuela. That is not democratic. In which paragraph, in which article of the United Nations Charter does it say that the president of one country can invade another? In which document in the world is written? Not even in the Bible. There is nothing that allows this to happen. The use of force, of power, what they want is to colonize us again.
For his part, Uruguayan President Yamandu Orsi, as summit chair, calls for stronger regional cooperation and dialogue, stressing Latin America's role in safeguarding its peace amid global turmoil.
Uruguay assumes this rotating presidency with humility, but also with firm conviction. We believe in dialogue, we believe in cooperation, we believe in the pursuit of consensus as a method, and we believe that in the world where conflicts are increasing, Latin America and the Caribbean bear a historic responsibility to protect the peace we have managed to build and to do everything necessary to ensure its continuity.
Meanwhile, Havana says it's ready for serious dialogue with Washington, but no meddling. Cuba's foreign minister made that clear at the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States Summit, rejecting what he called U.S. interference outside the bounds of diplomacy. Since the embargo began, Cuba has refused to negotiate its political system or presidential term limits.
We are ready to engage in a serious and responsible dialogue with the United States without any interference in the internal affairs of the political, economic and social systems of either country.
That's the end of our news program for tonight. Thank you for watching. Do take care.